Welcome back to another episode of Positively Uncensored, your favorite reality TV and interview podcast. It's your host, Leah, and today we will be diving into an assortment of things in the reality TV world. I will be talking to you a little bit about my episode with Olivia from Welcome to Plathville. We will be catching up on Love Island games and recapping episodes 2 through 6. And I will also be talking to you about my latest obsession, which will surprise a good amount of you, especially if you've listened to my podcast for a while, because I've never mentioned it, Love After Lockup. I've never seen a season, but here I am, 20 episodes into season 19 and wanting to talk about it. Before we get into the episode, just a reminder to like this episode if you're listening or watching on YouTube. Please leave a comment, subscribe. If you're listening on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, please leave me a review and make sure to add the podcast to your podcast that you listen to so that you don't miss an episode. I want to start by welcoming everybody new who found me because of my episode with Olivia. First of all, I knew since episode 1 of Welcome to Plathville, which admittedly I watched a month ago and then caught myself all the way up to season 7. But I knew since episode 1 that I wanted to chat with Olivia. So for that to actually come to fruition and get to watch the 7 seasons quickly, it's fresh on my mind, and then get to have the chance to talk with her. That moment felt massive for me. It felt very full circle. And I know that I haven't been in the Welcome to Plathville viewer community for very long, but I tried to do my research before and get a feel for what viewers were wanting to know. And because I am a viewer and found myself sucked into the series, I felt like I had a pretty good pulse on the questions that were valuable to ask Olivia. One thing I noticed is, first of all, the outpour of positive comments, both for me as the host, which I appreciate every single person who took the time to say any kind words for me. I also noticed an outpour of praise for Olivia and how she articulates herself, how she's able to blossom into the young woman that she is today and get out of tumultuous situations. And I saw a lot of praise for just sort of Olivia opening people's minds or helping them leave, whether it was a toxic or abusive relationship, or whether it was, if not the same religion, a very similar religion. Ooh, a bug, sorry. But I saw tons of positive comments that made me feel really great. I also saw a lot of comments, specifically mainly over on TikTok, right? Because that's where a couple of my clips got the most viral. And then over on Reddit, there was, of course, some troll comments. But I found it interesting the divide in the audience. And Olivia and I talked about this on the episode, which I also thought was an interesting. If you hear me clapping and you don't know what's happening, a mosquito is in fact swarming me. And I know what you're thinking, edit this out, but I'm on StreamYard and I won't have an episode transcript after. So it is what it is. Hopefully, this takes you back to the 90s. Hopefully, it doesn't startle you. I think I was able to kill the little bug. Let's see. Okay. If it comes back, you'll know because you'll hear me start clapping again. Um, but I think it's interesting to see the divide in comments that Olivia and talking with Olivia, or hearing Olivia mention the Plath's name, despite the fact that not only the show keeps bringing her up, but members of the Plath family. I think it's interesting to hear from people say that Olivia doesn't have the right to share her story, or that she's clearly just hateful, or that my podcast is a platform for hate because all we did was hate on TLC, hate on the Platts. I just think that that's such a telling perspective because clearly, number one, you have a lot of internalized misogyny to sort through. Number 2, it's always interesting to me people who align with this mentality of protecting anything above people first, whether it's property over people, whether it's capital over people, or whether it's a network over people. I always think it's interesting to just take the word of the side that has a lot more resources, the side that has a lot more initiative or reason to lie about something. I myself am too I'm too doubtful for that. Perhaps I'm not as optimistic as I once was, and perhaps that's like cynical thinking. But I actually think it's the opposite. I think to care more about people and want to hear people's stories and believe that every person has had an experience that you could take something to be shared from, especially people who are on reality TV, that there's so much things outside of what is demonstrated on the show for us to see. There's so much stuff that we miss. And I just think that that's an interesting perspective to think that basically, once you decide that the show is no longer healthy to you, or the relationship is no longer healthy to you, that you no longer have a right to talk about the show or the family unless it's to sing their praises. I think that that tells a lot about people and the opinions in which they carry. But going back, I saw a tons of people resonate with Olivia's journey, whether people love Olivia or whether people love to hate Olivia. She certainly makes a wave in the Welcome to Plathville community. And I just felt like we got to have a great conversation about a lot of things that we relate to, about some things that I don't relate to, but were just either fascinating or shocking or upsetting to hear Olivia talk about. I think that the episode had a variety of things, but I really enjoyed the conversation. I would love to have Olivia on, even if it was just to have a conversation about her growth, her experience, society right now. Those are the things that I'm interested in outside of the show. But thank you to every person who listened, every person who resonated with talking with her. I think that that's one of I love every interview that I do, and I'll always be like, this is one of my favorite interviews because I feel that way about every interview virtually. But I hold that interview with high revere in my heart. And if you haven't listened to it yet, this is your reminder. Go listen to my episode with Olivia Plath from Plathville. Also, if you have been reluctant to turn on Welcome to Plathville, I understand. And what I would say is it could be a background show for you to put on while you work from home, while you do the dishes, while you clean your house, while you do whatever. It could be a background show for you to put on for about 3 episodes. And I think that there's a lot of things to unpack there. Moving along, I want to talk about Love Island games. Love Island games. I didn't realize, and I don't know how I didn't realize this because I have, in fact, watched the first season of Love Island games, but I seem to have forgotten that it comes on just as frequently as Love Island. And on one hand, I love that. On another hand, it's just not hitting for me the way that Love Island does. I'm enjoying it. I'm having a good time watching it, but I don't enjoy the games aspect as much as I enjoy like the politics on the island as people are navigating relationships and trying to leave in a connection, and you are winning essentially because you have a believable connection and the audience wants to buy into your relationship is not the bug landing in my eye. I know you're fucking kidding. And I think that part of why I don't like Love Island games is the exact same reason why Perfect Match kind of annoys me, Too Hot to Handle kind of annoys me, a lot of Netflix's shows, actually. I don't necessarily always want to repeat seeing people from prior seasons. When it's someone I love and root for, I'm excited to see them. When it's somebody who I already encountered on a past season, whom I find draining, or I just think has done their rounds in the Love Island sphere, I'm not trying to see them come back. I'm talking about Andrea. I'm talking about Chris. I'm even potentially starting to talk about Andreina. I'm talking about Tyreek. But let's get into episode 2. Episode 2 started with when Charlie had stole Andrea away from Josh and they were having a conversation, their first conversation really as a couple paired up. And they talked about how they have all the similarities between themselves, between being both Colombian, which is what Andrea is, and Greek, which is what Charlie is. Now, Andrea claims that she's trying to explore and not put all of her eggs in Josh's basket. And at the time of episode 2, I didn't think that Andrea would succeed in that. Unfortunately, I've discovered that I'm not always necessarily a fair I don't always give a fair ruling, right? Talking as if I'm a judge, but I will be honest. And I've discovered that it really doesn't matter whether Andrea puts all of her eggs in one basket or not. No matter how she sort of plays the game, this is unfortunate, but she still annoys me on the island. I admit she's exploring this season and she's doing the things that I wish she had done in the prior season, but it's almost like too little, too late JoJo, right? I don't care at this point. Now, Solen and Mert are also now coupled up because Mert is no longer with Lucinda, okay? And basically, I don't think that Solan and Mert had anything even from the beginning. I know that they were some people's crack ships, but I didn't see any type of connection between them at all. I'll be honest though, for a few episodes, I struggled to see a connection between Mert and Lucinda. And we'll get into that a little bit more later, but I think that that was potentially more of a language barrier than actually him not interested. I also think that he doesn't wear his emotions on his face as much as other people do. So he's just a little bit hard to read. Now, KK and Chris are talking in Soul Ties and they have recently coupled up. And she talks to Chris about how they haven't had a real kiss yet because the first time that they kissed was in the challenge, and kisses outside actually show intention and that you like someone and that you're trying to pursue something. Meanwhile, Andreina and Tyreek are having a conversation, and she wants to get the lowdown on what Tyreek's reaction would be if and when she's bad at a challenge. And his response was basically like, I don't know, just do good in it. In it. I don't really think that Tyreek ever offered Andreina as very much validation. I don't think he ever made it seem like he was going to stay with her regardless of her performance. At least that's what I took from the conversation. Now, Andreina heard this and she's scared that he's going to switch up on her if he happens to see somebody else who's good at challenges. And then I'd say, Mama, yes, that's valid because that's exactly what he's going to do, and he's pretty much told you that. Now, I do think it's interesting that either production cut a lot of Andreina's personality on season 7 and didn't show us very many scenes of her, or she was never happy the entirety of the time that she was coupled up with, who was it? Brian and Jeremiah, because I never heard that laugh. That laugh that Andreina is doing on Love Island games from her the entire time. Tyreek has her in stitches, has the hyena laugh out. People are on TikTok telling Andreina that she needs to learn how to have a rich person's laugh, that you can't sit courtside with that laugh. And honestly, they're not wrong. They're not wrong. Okay. Now, Chris and Nicola have a conversation in the bathroom before bed. Now, mind you, this is right after Chris had recently coupled up with KK, and he says, like, I fancy you or whatever. You're my second choice. As he's about to crawl in bed with KK. I think that's interesting considering some of the things that we hear from Chris just like a couple of episodes later, but we'll get there when we get there. That night, episode 2, Andreina and Tyreek are the only ones who are getting active. It seems like they're just kissing and making out in bed. Now, breakfast day 1. Mert brings Lucinda a nice plate and a bowl of oatmeal. She tries the oatmeal and says, I want this for tomorrow. And then he looks over and sees Solen because, as I mentioned, he's no longer coupled up with Lucinda. And Solen was like, And so Mert, realizing that he didn't bring her, the girl he's coupled up with, anything, says, "Would you like this?" and offers her the bowl of oatmeal that Lucinda has just taken a bite of and sent away. That already is extremely offensive. I'll be honest, when I saw this moment, I was like, okay, I like the fact that Solen told Mert that that made her unhappy. And afterwards, she said, like, what? Do you think I'm a dog? With that being said, because this is uncensored, I didn't like Solen. I wasn't all the way bought in on Solen when they brought her out. And I couldn't necessarily put my finger on it. Maybe it's that she looks like somebody who I thought was problematic. She looks like a ton of influencers combined in one. I just got a feeling about her that I just wasn't 100% bought in. And I learned that on her season of Love Island, that either afterwards, allegedly, or during, she made a comment where she allegedly said, trigger warning, racism, that Cindy, a Black woman on the show with her, she made fun of her afro and it said something along the lines of, I could get your hairstyle if I stuck my finger in a light socket. And once I saw that on my timeline on Twitter last night, that confirmed why I don't like Solen. And I'm not familiar with Cindy. I did not watch her season, but even if people don't like Cindy, I don't care. That's anti-Black. That's texturism. That's rude. It's racist. It's more than a microaggression. It's a macroaggression. It's just flat out racist. And I don't like it. I don't like it. Okay. And we've heard that French people can be racist. So you're gonna hear a lack of empathy for me for Solen, but that's because she's not my cup of tea, and if she's your cup of tea, then so be it. But once I learned that, I'm like, "Listen, you don't get that's what you get. That's what you get. If you're gonna be racist and if you're gonna be anti-Black, then what you get is some spoiled oats." Now, Lucinda and Josh got a text that they are going to duel another islander to get rid of the necklace that was given to them. Because when Charlie and Solen came in, they had the Heartbreakers necklace, which they passed along to somebody else and then partnered with whomever that person was coupled up with. Now, Josh is just too much for me. Okay. I know that this is Love Island games. I'm not completely bought in on that concept to begin with. But I just don't like how charged up Josh is. And I think that it just comes across like a little bit try hard. It's just too much for me. I'm not interested. I even cringed a little when Nicola was like, like, I've got this. I've got this. Like, do whatever you have to do, girl, to hype yourself up. I'm not going to judge you, especially since you're having such a hard time in there. And I'm also biased. It lands different on a woman. I'm sorry. He's too short. He's too riled up. He's got a little bit too much energy. And I know a lot of people said that he was a favorite from the past season, but what we're seeing of him now, he's just not my favorite. People can say that he has a lot of heart. He's playing the game how you're supposed to. I find him annoying. I just find him annoying. Okay. But he tells Chris that he's going to pick Charlie because he's 140 pounds soaking wet. So he's the obvious choice. Now, the predictions I had for Charlie before he went in, when it was first announced that he was on the cast, is I had the following predictions, and you can go verify on my TikTok. I said that I think that Charlie will be rejected. I think that Charlie will try very hard in challenges, but still lose, and that he will be going home early. Every single prediction that I made, I was correct on. I also knew how Charlie would fare in this challenge before it started, and I had so written in my notes. And I would compare Charlie's body, and I'm not trying to body shame everybody, he's just very thin, but he reminds me of somebody who would have the strength of somebody who's on, like, heroin or crack. And what I mean by that is a very short, very charged burst. We're like, Hmm. I didn't even expect that level of power to come out of you, followed by it completely fizzling out. So I knew that it would be short. I knew that he would surprise people and be a little bit stronger than anticipated and put up a good fight. But I also knew that he would tire easily because, again, he doesn't look like he works out. He's just lanky, right, and thin. Josh said it himself, 140 pounds soaking wet, which Josh clearly doesn't know what 140 pounds look like soaking wet because Charlie's easily 175. Okay. But nonetheless, he selects Charlie and he's talking to Chris about how that's going to be the best choice for him. Now, Lucinda, on the other hand, is feeling like shit having to fight. She's not as charged up as Josh. She doesn't like confrontation and she feels like it's just downright nasty to be this competitive. With that being said, though, she's thinking of picking Andraina. And let me tell you, good choice. Good choice, Lucinda. Now, Andraina has already tested the waters a little bit to ask Tyreek what he would do if she performed badly. What Tyreek didn't know is that Andraina knew that she was going to have the floor mopped with her in a physical challenge. That's what she knew. As stated, she was testing the waters. And as she has this conversation with Tyreek, she tests the waters once again. And she's like, I know that you're going to talk to other girls. And he says, you're right. I will. Meanwhile, Solen is pulled by Mert to explain why he didn't cook her breakfast. And he's like, listen, I'm not trying to pee in your Wheaties or ruin your morning, but I'm interested in Lucinda. And that's why I made breakfast for only her. Basically, what I got from that is I don't have the energy to try to just be nice. And I'm just going to put my energy into the relationship that I'm actively pursuing. And I don't know, like part of me thinks he's an asshole for that and part of me just kind of appreciates it. Now, they decide that they're going to be platonic couple whatever because his sights are set on Lucinda. Meanwhile, Lucinda and Josh talk to each other because they're the two that are going to have to duel about who they're going to pick. Tyreek is on the move and he's nothing if not persistent and audacious and I don't think he really has any shame because he's also, I can at least say he likes variety. He will go all over, okay? Because he's putting an egg in each person's basket, but it's also just funny over the next course of the episodes to hear Tyreek change his tune and go from being interested in Andraina to being interested in KK to then being interested in Justine and the things that he says along the way. But for right now, he pulls KK and tells her that he's attracted to her immediately and that he wants to share a bed. I thought that was ballsy as hell because I thought at first that he was talking about share a bed that night. He was talking about the day bed, okay? But we see him in his connection and or in his confessional say that he's gonna let me pop that connection right there with Andraina, and I'm gonna go ahead and shake it up with KK. Okay, okay, he creates his own issues. Now, okay, let's get to the challenge. Lucinda versus Andraina. As stated, Andraina got mopped. She dragged the floor with her, clean up aisle 3. This was truly embarrassing. It was embarrassing to watch. It was probably embarrassing for her to be there. I thought, is she trolling us? Potentially, she's trying to do so terrible on challenge 1 and then be a great physical competitor in the back half. But that strategy just wouldn't really make sense. Basically, the premise of the challenge is they have these elastic bands on both sides of them and each of them is trying to run to an opposite side of a ring. Picture a boxing ring. They have balls that they need to grab and place in a vase that's on a little stand. There's one vase per ball. They have 6 of them. They are trying to run which ends up pulling the other person with them because this is an elastic band. They're trying to see who can get all of their balls on, which requires the other person to either just give up and let them do it or fight back and pull against them. And whoever is strongest is going to be the person who's able to get across the ring and get the balls in. Now, Andraina parks it on the ground the entirety of the challenge. And I'll be honest with you, what Tyreek said wasn't nice. It wasn't supportive. It wasn't motivating, but I would be so frustrated if I was coupled up with Andraina or if she was fighting for her safety. And I'm telling you, get up, get up, get up. And you proceed to stay on the ground. Now, let me leave grace for maybe she simply couldn't. No strength. However, if that's the case, then I'm sorry. I think that you were blessed with great genes, potentially went and got a BBL, and I don't believe that you're in the gym every day. If you're in that gym every day, maybe you get on there and walk on the treadmill and hike up the incline. But I absolutely don't believe that you were doing any sort of like hugely physical strength conditioning. And also, we saw a video of Andreina at the Pilates studio. Now, I I want to point out that I'm still rooting for Andreina. I made a graph of who I'm rooting for and where I would place people the same way that I do every season. And let's just see. If you're watching, then you can see that I just put up my tier rankings. I still have Andreina in the category under rooting for you. And I did make this after last night's episode, after episode 6. So this is updated. Okay. I still have her there towards the end of the row now, but I'm rooting for her. Okay. I'm rooting for her. I do feel sad to see her cry. Simultaneously, I'm going to be honest with you. Andreina has, if I can say when a guy gives me the ick, I'm gonna be honest. Andreina gave me the ick on this show. On Love Island Games, it's if it's not the laugh, it's the performance and the challenges. And Andreina, conversation, her chat might be great. She's stunning, but just stand there, girl. Just stand there because the baddie card is almost revoked. Like I almost can't even see Andreina as being as hot as she is because of how badly she tanked in that challenge. If I was her partner, I would get the ick. I would. I'd get the ick and I wouldn't want to be partnered up with her. That's just me being real. No matter how hot she is, I would get the ick. Same about if I was watching a guy. Doesn't matter who is up there on the board. If I watched them have that performance, I would get the ick. And that's because this is Love Island Games. And also, I'm sorry, I am also physically uncoordinated. I also realize that that's embarrassing. But Lucinda is the white girl in the first row of rooting for you. And she actually weighs 120 pounds soaking wet. So, what are we doing? What are we doing? Moving along to Charlie and Josh. Okay. Basically, all I feel like is relevant is saying here is Charlie performed exactly as I guessed he would. He put up a little bit of a fight in the first half, and then Josh absolutely smoked him. And Josh was very charged. He had himself worked up before the challenge, so I'm not surprised. Not because he's a stellar athlete, but because he was basically like when they poke the bulls, which is gross, and then they let them out and they're all angry. That's what Josh was like, okay? Also, I think that Josh was bullied when he was younger. I also know that he went through a trauma where he lost a sibling, and to that I have extensive amount of empathy for him. Um, Tyreek's comment to Josh and Josh being so offended by it, I don't know. Like, I just don't really like how Josh reacts to situations. And I feel like he's easily offended. I feel like he's just a little bit too intense. I don't think that he liked when Tyreek made a comment because what do you mean I didn't come here to fuck off? What does that even mean? Right? Like, that was embarrassing that that was your response to Tyreek's comment. And was Tyreek's comment snarky? Yes, right? But like I also feel like in competition, you do sort of talk shit to your competitor. I don't know. Josh is just not my cup of tea. I don't like it. Okay. Continuing along, we finished Love Island episode 2. Josh won, Lucinda won, Andreina and Charlie both lost, leaving them vulnerable and putting on that ugly ass heartbreak necklace. Starting into episode 3. Episode 3 starts with Tyreek talking to Andreina about. Actually, you know what? I'm sorry. I'm looking at my notes. Tyreek didn't talk to Andreina about a damn thing that's relevant. Andrea and Josh talk about how they think that they're likable and they think that they're scaring other people. And I think that they're almost perfect for each other because they're both out of touch with reality. They both don't actually have a pulse on what people think of them. And they're both just like a little bit annoying. Like, honestly, they're both just a little bit annoying. Now, Lucinda and Tyreek have a conversation because, as stated, he is in fact putting an egg in every single basket and says that she has caught his eye. And basically, of course, because she just performed well and mopped the floor with Andreina. But Tyreek knows no morals because you'll see in a second here, he has a kiss with a different Islander. But right after Andreina lost the competition in a feral way, and she's feral, she's crying, she's upset, she's worked up. His solution is to go out and to talk to her competitor and show interest who just beat her and then share a kiss while she's at her lowest. So honestly, I understand why Andreina gave Tyreek the attitude that she gave him. I also appreciate the fact that she also has her own roster and game going on. But let's continue. So Lucinda mopped the floor with Andreina, which made her catch Tyreek's eye. While Andreina is crying over the news that Tyreek is upset by her performance, Kendall goes in the photo booth with Garby, and the two of them share what some would describe as a steamy makeout session. I feel like no matter what Kendall does, it's impossible for me to perceive him as not being performative. So I'm not putting any of my eggs in his basket with his relationship in regards to being with Garby, and I want Garby to have another option because I'm Kendall, at every turn, you've sort of just echoed some sentiments of misogynoir, or you haven't paid attention to Black women. So I'm just finding this arc a little bit disingenuous and feeling like you might be using Garby. And I don't like that. Okay. Now, as I mentioned just a second ago, Tyreek, after talking to Lucinda, goes and has a chat with KK. And basically, he flirts it up with her. They have chemistry. She's also been interested in him since she got in there. To be fair, she came in and said that she had her eye on both Tyreek and Chris. So she's currently paired up with Chris, but she did express interest in Tyreek, and they make out because he's like, "How much trouble you want to get in?" And one thing I will say is I do get the Tyreek appeal just by how he looks, how he talks, but the way that he moves is diabolical. I wouldn't really wish that on very many people. Now, in tonight's episode, we go to bed, and the only people who are making out is Garby and Kendall. No, nothing happening between Chris and KK, nothing happening between Mert and Lucinda because I don't think they're in the same bed anymore. At the end of the episode, Justine and Johnny enter the villa. Actually, this isn't the end of the episode. I'm sorry. Halfway through the episode. And Charlie and Andreina get pulled out the same way that Jeremiah did in season 7. And Huda woke up and tapped on Taylor and woke him up. They get pulled out and they're going on dates with the bombshells. Now, when the Islanders wake up, Charlie, is it? No. Is it Charlie? Yes. When they wake up, Charlie and Andreina have snuck out of the villa for their date, but the Islanders at the house don't know who they are with. Now we find out when Johnny and Andreina see each other. I was immediately like, well, he's her type. But add in the fact that they already have history. They've already explored things. They have some unfinished business. And we're sort of discovering that Andreina had a roster and some time on her hands before she got back to Fiji, in between when she just left Fiji. Now, Charlie goes on a date with Justine, and I'm honestly like, Justine, I'm sorry that you have to entertain Charlie. I know a lot of people are like, what do you have against Charlie? I don't like him. I don't like him. I think he's annoying. And if you're from another country, whether you're Canadian, whether you're from the UK, and then you support Donald Trump, and I've heard that you're MAGA, I detest you. Now, you guys don't know this, but about 8 hours passed in between when I got back into this recording. So let's see if I remember where I left off. And if I do, please put in the comments just how impressive I am, because I think I'm going to remember. When I said earlier about Chris having a conversation with Nicola before bed, and I said, hold on a second, because it's feeling hypocritical when he judges KK for her moment and crawls into bed with him. This is the moment that I was in reference to. KK's kiss with Tyreek, Chris's moment with Nicola. I'm like, really, only the physicality is the difference, because almost it's worse that you gave actual reassurance. Episode 3 is the episode where they have the challenge where the couples pair up and then attempt to maneuver a little metal spear from one end to the next without dinging it on a pole. And basically, I would compare this to like a complicated adult version of Operation. So the couples that go is it's Nicola and Isaiah versus Charlie and Justine. Then we have Garby and Kendall versus Johnny and Andreina. Some people might fault me on this, but this is where you'll discover just how little I enjoy the challenges. I often forget to write who won. No idea who won with Nicola and Isaiah. I know that Johnny and Andreina won versus Garby and Kendall. Then we have Chris and, let's see. No, I don't know. Then it just goes to episode 4. Basically, that's how little I like challenges. Charlie's at risk at the end of the challenges. Johnny and Andreina versus Kendall and, I'm sorry, Charlie goes home. Like, too long didn't read. Charlie goes home. Stumbling through this. On to episode 4. Episode 4 starts with Kendall saved by the Islanders and telling Garby that they have to win the next challenge. Garby says that she's ready to cut down her nails because she'll do anything at this point to win the challenges. Now, we see Andreina emotional after coming out of the last challenge and telling Johnny that confidence is really her guard and she likes how he leads her. And he alludes to the many times that he saved her and brought her out of the dumps. And honestly, I'm gonna need Johnny to reassess the situation. Like, on one hand, I almost said you're wrong, but like on one hand you did. On another hand, I'm sure that you'll contribute to that eventually. I'm gonna add to the days since Tyreek made someone cry, which I think is still sitting at 0. I'm going to add a countdown timer for Johnny as well. Now, if you remember in episode 3, KK and Tyreek shared a kiss. She got into bed and she did not tell Chris about it yet. The next day, Tyreek does what men often do, where he's like, man to man, like, it would only be right to tell you this. You know, me and KK shared a kiss. It's like, why do men have all the respect in the world for each other, but not for women? That never makes sense to me. Also, Tyreek, to see what you do a couple episodes later, what do you mean that you're trying to be like a good man or a good friend to Chris? It's also like, Chris, you've put no moves on KK the last couple days, so I'm failing to see the issue. You know, I don't get it. When Isaiah brings Nicola her smoothie, she says that 3 days is too long to wait and know if there's a spark. And this is what she says after he leaves, and she says to the girls. Basically, she's like, 3 days is too long to know if there's a spark. Like, I'm gonna need more effort from him or more something because I'm partnered up with someone who I don't think is interested in me. And that's because at this point, Isaiah has not been forward with Nicola to tell her that there is no spark there or that he's not physically attracted to her. Now, that might have been something that he was waiting to see if the attraction grows, but I'm feeling for Nicola while also thinking like this is Love Island games. Games. Win the game, baby. It doesn't matter. None of these guys matter. They're not even really that many solid options there. Just play to win. As breakfast is going over, Chris makes his rounds telling people one by one about KK's kiss with Tyreek. Basically, he can't believe it. Andreina is in the hallway and he corners her so that he can tell her. I don't even remember who else he told earlier in the morning, potentially Johnny, but Chris is obviously bothered by this. So eventually he talks to KK and tells her, I know about the kiss. And she's like, listen, I am sorry that I didn't tell you about the kiss, but I need you to flirt with me more because I'll be honest, I wish that the kiss was between us, but I just need more from you. Because what she has said to Tyreek is that she was starting to feel bored with Chris. And we're seeing very minimal effort from Chris. Also, he came in here saying that it was all about the money, all about the money. So, like, I need him to pick a side and stand on it. Isaiah finally has a conversation later on in episode 4 with Nicola, where he tells her that, listen, they make a great team. They're great competitors, but he's just not sure if the attraction is there. When I initially watched this scene, I wasn't sure if he had properly articulated that he was breaking up with her. Because I didn't perceive it that way. My boyfriend was like, no, he definitely cut things off with her. But I just kind of wondered what Nicola's perception of the conversation was because add a language barrier on top of that. I really wasn't getting what Isaiah was saying, and I think that's because he was trying to say things in a nice way. Now, Andreina has a conversation with Tyreek at some point where she talks about his kiss with KK because, like I said, Chris spilled the beans to Andreina earlier in the episode. And the attitude that she gave Tyreek in this conversation was absolutely hilarious. And I'm sorry, but Tyreek deserves it because says things like this to Andreina.
Breathing like a French bulldog. that laugh, that laugh, that can't.
In case you missed it, he said, you're breathing like a French bulldog. That's what he said. Okay. So I don't feel bad for Tyreek that he's getting an attitude. I think he deserves it. She also, like, listen, me kissing Johnny on our date when we have history is way different than you kissing KK at my lowest. I'm not so sure about that, Andreina. However, Tyreek is diabolical. And because the way that he moves makes little to no sense, I think that this is what he deserves. I think it's a taste of his own medicine, and I think it's what he deserves. And I think that it's funny that I think he's feeling a little bit insecure or at least a little bit shady about the fact that Andreina has like more and more members of her roster coming into Love Island games. And he, for example, gets rejected for a kiss in one episode. But when Andreina tells him in this conversation, I'm sorry that I'm hot and everybody wants me, I had to cackle because yeah. Yeah, and like I said, when she's just standing there and not in a physical challenge, I would say I agree. Now, Andrea and Josh have another insufferable conversation where they bond over the fact that they wrote in their journals, win Love Island games, and that they think people are scared of them. The people who are scared of them must be in the rooms, i.e., it's the two of them, because I haven't heard that at all. Now, Christine has a conversation with, I'm sorry, Christine. Oh my God, not Chris and Justine's name being an actual name, Christine. Okay, Chris and Justine have a conversation, and his talk went with, I'm here for money. I'm here for the money, to saying that money is money, like at the end of the day, like I'm open to love. And then he adds on top of it and he tells her, and I think that you're that person that I could do this with. Huh? Huh? Also, when Chris said that his longest relationship was 3, I had to laugh because days, weeks, months, years, we're just assuming it's years, quarters in the games that you didn't play overseas. What do we like? What? We don't know, right? Now, KK pulls Andreina for a chat because at this point, it came out of 2 different horses' mouth, right? It came out of Chris's mouth bright and early. Then she had a conversation with Tyreek, and now she wants to hear it. Now she wants to hear it directly. So Andreina starts the conversation by saying, listen, I'm not mad at you. And KK's pretty much like, listen, I'm upset that Tyreek was the person to go around and be loose lipped. But considering he's loose lipped and just smooching with everybody, since that's how he moves, it's really not that surprising. Now, during the chat, and this just shows how much audacity Tyreek has. During KK and Andreina's chat about their kiss, right? Tyreek walks up to pull KK for a romantic conversation. Nah, like he the way he moves is madman. It's madman. It's absolutely crazy. Um, and what he tells KK is basically what Chris was just telling Justine, and it's that I want a couple that's romantic and intelligent, and I think that's you. And KK's like, listen, I feel like you're looking for better competitors. And the first time that somebody walks in that is that and is a better competitor than me, then you're going to leave me. And she also suggests that maybe he should put 2 eggs in everybody's basket instead of just throwing it at the wall and seeing what sticks. He also attempts to kiss her. And she puts the ixnay on that, puts the ixnay on that conversation. I think so, at least, because I wrote Tyreek puts moves on. However, don't quote me, it might be the next episode. Now, Kendall is a hater, and he's always a hater, and he always ends up saying something at some point that's like, you're a hater, and like you hate when Black women specifically are like doing better than you or are more popular than you or better received by the viewers than you. Because I'm sorry, but the small comment he made, like, Justine was winning 2 times is crazy. Like, okay, and you losing 2 times is crazy. You know, like I could say the exact same thing about you. Now, at towards the end of the episode, Ariana walks in this jean and bedazzled bra top, and she brings in a new bombshell, and it's Toby. Toby is someone who like grows on me the more I look at him on screen. But when he first came out, like he's nothing that I was like, woo, a penny drop. Like it was nothing like so exciting for me. That might say something about me, but it didn't feel like when Miguel came in, you know, during season 6. But anyways, in walks Toby. And Toby decides to couple up with Andrea, moving her for the 3rd time because she was stolen by Charlie. She was with Josh earlier, and now she's with Toby. What happens next? Let me check my I already don't like football, and I'm not entertained when it's on. Yes, my boyfriend has it on all the time, but it's not something that moves me personally. So a challenge based around football, but it's actually not, and it's just like a bunch of liquids on their heads, I'm out. I fast forwarded right past this. Don't care, don't care. It's not physical enough that I can like have a couple laughs like the first challenge. And again, you'll see consistently over my reviews how little I like the challenges. So if that's something that bothers you, I completely understand that you reserve the right to go and like meander around and find a podcast that goes really deep into that. If you are watching specifically because you love challenges and you don't usually watch Love Island, that's fair. So end result of the football game is that Chris and KK won the challenge, and their reward sucks because basically they have to pick a safe couple to be vulnerable. They end up deciding to pick Solen and Mert. And Solen is not happy about this because she thought that her and KK were friends. And it's like, again, no sympathy because of what you allegedly said about Cindy. Now, I skipped Love Island After Sun, which was episode 5, catching us all the way up to episode 6. Okay. Episode 6 starts with Solen talking about how she thinks that Chris and KK wasted their opportunity to send home the strongest competitor. And, you know, that would be a hell of a way to play so early and make potential enemies, especially if it went south. If he tries to send home Johnny, or if he tries to send home Justine, that could go poorly. So I don't necessarily think that she was thinking out all of their possibilities. Now, Tyreek was temporarily coupled up with Lucinda because she won the challenge against Andrina in that duel, and they've been coupled up ever since then, basically platonically, because she's still exploring things with Mert and he's not physically attracted to her. After that last challenge where they came in fourth, he's ready to get the F up out of there, pretty much confirming exactly what KK thought about how he would move. Like I said in the last episode, leave space for me to be wrong, because episode 6 is, in fact, the episode where Tyreek goes to talk to KK before bed, realizing that things aren't working out with the pink Power Ranger either, aka Lucinda. So he's going to talk to KK and attempts to have a kiss before bed. Now, for the first time, maybe ever, although I doubt it, maybe just on camera, Tyreek was denied a kiss. It was at least a change of events for him because he looked physically taken aback. However, his feelings didn't look that hurt. It was like, yeah, okay. Because he still tried to flirt with her anyways. And basically, KK's not going to kiss you because you just spilled the beans the last time. So even if she was giving in to some of your charm, she also says that Chris is the full package, and they are one of the only ones besides Lucinda and Mert who make out before bed. And Lucinda and Mert before bed, Chris and KK in bed. Now, the following morning, let's remember that I believe it's Solen and Mert are both vulnerable. And KK is trying to tell Solen and Lucinda both that America is going to like their personalities and not to worry so much about getting sent home. And that's what you get for trying to guess what America thinks. Okay. Okay. This is the second or third time, which I do find interesting. And I do think I would be guilty of as well. But I think it's interesting that KK is trying to put a pulse on, and I'm sure others are as well, but we're only seeing clips of her, but put a pulse on what viewers are thinking and sort of try to base their vote or their guess or how nervous they are before a challenge or before a vote based off of that, when in reality, it's just really hard to tell because you're there and living the experiences and having this extensive time with everybody on the island, and we are watching limited clips. Now, I don't know how we went from Mert making 2 separate courses for Lucinda, a full plate of fruit, scrambled eggs, bacon, also a bowl of oatmeal, bringing her coffee, to all of a sudden making her nothing. But by episode 6, that's where we are, because everybody, and I mean everybody, got served breakfast except for her. In fact, Andrea got breakfast from both Josh and Toby. I'm confused. I'm confused. Mert, do you like her or not? But later in the episode, he does try to make up for it. And he makes up for it with this yoga date that, of course, Kendall helps him plan. I'll admit, I think that Mert is so cute and I like the things that he says. But yeah, I'm not seeing too much effort from him, and a romantic gesture, the thing that's so beautiful about it is it's something that goes beyond a language barrier, and it's something that you can just do and is interpreted. So I don't know why, I don't think that that's the reason that there isn't more. So I'm just wondering, is he more low key? Is he not used to that? Is he not interested? Or does he just play things that laid back and that aloof, and the ladies still flock because he is very attractive? Now, Andreina and Johnny chat some bullshit about how he's going to be a better man and he's turned over a new leaf. And maybe he has, because he does talk about the fact that he has a child. Maybe he has. However, we know him as Johnny on Love Island. And for some reason, I feel like Johnny did something problematic that I disliked, especially. So, one eye open. Now, Andrea is currently thinking that, no, I'm thinking this about Andrea. I'm wondering, do you think Andrea is leading Josh on? Because she's making out with Toby, doing what arguably she should be doing and exploring things. But meanwhile, she was sort of talking to Josh about how everybody is scared of them. And like she wishes that she was spending the night with him in bed. The last note that I had written is that Tyreek and Justine chat, and basically he tells her that he's finding himself not wanting to chat to Andreina and that she is the person for him to explore romantically and both. I don't know how many times you heard me say that in this episode already. Like, okay, from just one person to the next. Chris already beat you there, by the way, because he's already said that. At the end of the episode, Solen and Mert end up going home. And a lot of people think that this is to make room for the storyline between Isaiah and Sydney from Love Island US, who comes in at the end of the episode. It could be. Maybe because I don't know who they're thinking Lucinda is gonna couple up with right now. I thought initially that that's who Kendall was gonna be interested in, but we're seeing that both Lucinda and Nicola, like now that Mert's gone, Lucinda doesn't really have very many options, and Nicola doesn't have very many options. That's everything. That's episode 6. I am on episode 20 of Love After Lockup. Before we get there, I'm going to show you one more time. Let's see. Okay. I'm going to show you one more time the tiers that I did. As of now, this is how I'm feeling. My winners, KK, Justine, and Garby. Those are the 3 who I'm rooting for. Under my category, under rooting for you, who I'm still rooting for, but I'm not going to place you at my winners. Lucinda, Nicola, and Andreina. Andreina is at the end of the row. And from the first row down, occasionally, just depending on my mood, sometimes it's relevant and sometimes it's not where they're placed. For Andreina, she is at the end of the row intentionally because you're on my watch list. Okay. Now, if I have to, I'll vote for Isaiah, although there's nothing that alluring about him. I don't want Chris there. He can go take the spot on the team. However, if he's going to be with any of the top 3, I would have to endure him. And the same goes for Kendall. Now, Tyreek and Johnny are good for the plot. And some may think that maybe this category should be moved up higher then, but they're good for the plot. That doesn't necessarily mean that I'm rooting for them or that I'll vote for them, but they're definitely good for the plot and I'll enjoy them for the amount of time that they are there. Josh is at the very end of that. I'm really technically not invested in him, but at times his crash outs are funny. Like at times the crash outs are funny. Andrea and Toby, I'm not invested in. I'm not invested in their connection. I hope it works out for her and I hope the 2 of them chop chop. They can go. Now, ending with Love After Lockup. I'm on season 19 and the couple actually I've met all 3 of these couples. I don't very much have an opinion on Michael and his wife because most of the time I skip their scenes. There are a couple who I skip. I mentioned in the beginning that some I skip and some I don't. I do am and invested in um I think it's Kiara or Kiana. I'm not remembering right now. And Demadric. I'm about to see Joella. She's getting pulled over in the most recent episode. Spoilers. I don't know for what yet, but she was filing accusations against Kiana. And I think that that's crazy. I think that that's crazy. I don't think she did it. I think that Joella did it. I think that Demadric is super messy, though. I feel bad for, honestly, both women. Like, I honestly feel bad for both women involved. Now, on to Brooke and JK. If I told you that 3 women were after him, you'd think I'd say JK. Just kidding. But that's realistically it. Brooke needs to get frequent flyer miles or get paid to as she drives. She should potentially pick up a job as a truck driver. She loves to be on the road and she loves to track down JK. She could have her separate. She should have pursued something like being a PI because I think personally that she would have loved it. Or Dog the Bounty Hunter type situation. I think that that would have been perfect for Brooke. Um, I'm shocked that Brooke and JK aren't from Ohio, just because a lot of the couples are from Ohio or were not featured on here. And they just seem like that's where they would be from, especially with her like snake bite piercing on her lip. That's how it comes across to me. I was absolutely captivated by Julius, Alexis, and that crazy fucking bitch, that crazy, chaotic, messy, delusional woman who kept yelling, "You can't even swim! You can't even swim!" I also think that Julius was being a bit of a demon. And Alexis deserves better. However, she was pregnant and then all of a sudden we don't see her. I need to know if that's par for the course of Love After Lockup and if I'm just going to be getting attached to couples whom I'm not seeing anymore. I just recently in the last 6 episodes have met Zariah and Troy. And my thoughts is I'm truly worried about Troy. It's traumatic to watch what he's going through and to know that he's being filmed for it just feels wrong and exploitative and it's almost like trauma porn to watch. I genuinely feel so bad for him. I cry every time one of his scenes comes on. Everything he's dealing with in his life is so heavy. And I don't know if I'm going to change my mind as the episodes go on, but right now I think Zariah is not supportive and she's causing more stress for an already traumatic time. We got to see his family members, and if she's had any contact with them, the conversation that he had with his mom alone is something that he was trying to spare her from being at with him. And just sort of go see his people by himself, knowing how things were going to go. And I think that it's, unless there's like this prior history of him cheating all the time, I really don't understand why everything is so pressing. I do appreciate Zariah wanting to help Troy see his daughter, Troy, Troii. However, um, that's just how it's seeming right now. Troy, I mean, it is heavy. It is heavy. Now, who's the other couple that I watch but scroll past? The couple Will and whatever he has going on, that's a mess. Bianca and whoever she's with, if I was Bianca, I'd smack the shit out of him. You're annoying. You looked at her and said, "You're not it." What do you say? "You're not it, sissy," or sister. Or "You're not it, sweetie. Sweetie, you're not it." And then you have the like, he is a man child, so annoying. I would smack the fuck out of him. But also Bianca was being like a bad friend to her friend when she went wedding dress shopping and like made it about her. The whole relationship is a mess. Anyways, I'm hooked on it. This has been an amazing episode. Everybody, make sure, as I said earlier, to like, to subscribe, to leave me a comment. Tell me what your thoughts are. I'm going to be a little more consistent on my recaps after Love Island games, but I had to get through all of my prep for my interview with Olivia. And as I said at the beginning of this episode, that went really well. I hope that everybody has an amazing Monday. It's September 22nd when I'm recording this. Whenever you listen to this, whatever day it is, it might feel like Monday, it might not, but have a good day and take a load off.